Recording in progress.
Hi, Ben.
Howdy, Harshit. How do you
Hi.
pronounce your name?
It's Harshit.
Harshit.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good. Well, it's midnight here, but good morning
Oh,
to you too.
yeah. So,
Right.
so how many avocado growers do you have there?
In India, the industry is very small right now, and
Hmm.
not a lot of people are doing it commercially. I'm among the first one who are actually doing it on commercial rootstocks with imported plants. And I would like to thank you for our previous conversation where you helped me out when I needed information for dieback.
Hmm.
We could
You're
never
welcome.
actually figure out what the original cause was because when I sent it to the lab, they said there were no fungus issues in the roots, like they tested it. So it
Hmm.
might have been just shock or I don't know.
Yeah. When we plant our commercial rootstocks here, commercial plantings,
Yeah,
it's totally acceptable to have a 1% loss of trees.
right,
You know,
right,
I've seen higher than that, and I've seen lower, but 1% is normal. And
right, okay.
the nurseries always incorporate that, so they'll replace the trees. It could have been something in the nursery, but more
Yeah.
commonly, it's you know the the
Hmm.
the, the workers are throwing things around. Gosh, you never grab a tree by the trunk and
Yeah,
throw it in the
yeah,
ground.
yeah,
But I see that all the time.
yeah. That could be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So let's begin.
Yes. Go for it.
Okay. So first we'll talk about some introduction. What can you give us a background of what your work, what you have been up to, what got you into avocados, right?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, um, I was born in 1951.
Hmm.
You want to start at the very beginning, or uh,
Yeah, that's fine.
anyway? Okay, so I um, I went to college, and I
Right.
went as a history major.
Okay.
I did, and so I was there, and I went to a school that was in the mountains
Hmm.
near the ocean, and I
Hmm.
got involved in collecting ferns.
Okay.
And I really became interested in plants. So
Right.
I graduated with a degree in biology, and
Right.
then went and taught chemistry and physics at a
Hmm.
high school.
Hmm.
And when I was finished doing that, I got involved with a grower who was doing dwarf apples, high intensity um, dwarf apples, and that
Yeah.
really got me interested in
Yeah.
farming.
Yeah.
So I went back to agricultural school,
Right.
and I got a degree in irrigation and soil management
Hmm.
and in pomology,
Hmm.
and uh, started working in almonds.
Okay.
And then this position working in avocados and citrus came up,
Right.
and I've taken that. So I've been with the University of California since 1979.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and,
So that was
and
UC Davis.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
And so I've been working with avocados and citrus basically since 1989.
Right. That's a long time back.
Yeah, yeah.
And how has the industry evolved over time? Was it like when you first started out, was Haas all the craze, or were you focused on other varieties and then Haas became a dominant one later on?
Okay, Haas was uh, patented in 1928 or something like that,
Okay.
and and the industry in California, and there really were only two places where avocado, well, actually three, but two commercially in Florida and California, and then a really, really, really small industry in Hawaii.
Okay.
And in California, there was about 2,000 hectares grown up until about 1950.
Mm-hmm.
And then started taking off, and the Fuerte was the dominant variety. But there
Okay.
were, Fuerte and Rincon and Bacon and Zutano and Stewart, and there are 900 named varieties of avocado. And so you'd go into the market and you'd find at least 8 or 10 different varieties at any one time of the year.
Right.
And then a large water project was put in that allowed planting in a really ideal spot. So in California, avocados have historically been grown in areas that are kind of cool, or very cool. And they're really not the ideal environment for avocados. So suddenly this area was developed that was ideal for avocados, and now there is water. And
Right.
it took off and it took off just at the time that people were looking for marketing of the fruit in the rest of the United States. And so the Fuerte is a thin-skinned fruit. Most of the others are kind of thin-skinned. And Hass became the dominant variety because of, its marketability, and it's good, and you can harvest it year-round. Well, not you can harvest it, but it doesn't taste good year-round. In our environment, it's ideal in the spring and the summer.
Yeah.
So suddenly we went from 2,000 hectares to ultimately in 1990 we had close to 50,000 hectares.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a considerable increase in the acreage.
Yeah.
And so that was 1990. And we were shipping all over the United States. And
Right.
then Mexico, which is a much, 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 much larger producer, and it's just the largest exporter in the world,
Yeah.
was trying to get it into the market. So the California growers were saying, no, we don't want those darn Mexicans in here. They're going to flood the market with cheap fruit. And what has happened is it's just the opposite. Consumption in in the United States has increased. It used to be only Californians ate avocados.
Okay.
Now people in Montana and Wyoming and Minnesota and New York and Colorado and Kansas, everywhere they eat. So
Yeah, I've seen the
consumption has
numbers.
increased.
It's just like just during the Super Bowl, the consumption is very high, let alone the entire year.
Yeah. So actually the Mexican fruit has increased consumption and prices to growers. Used to be prices would fluctuate in the low 15, 25 cents per pound.
Yeah.
And now it's rare that it's less than $1.
Okay.
And it goes higher than that. And it's really because people recognize the fruit and they eat it, and there's greater demand.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. So I read a paper that you wrote where you mentioned you did some high density planting. You saw some high density planting in Chile, and you visited some orchards in Chile along with some other researchers. Can you tell me more about your opinion on high density planting, and how high was it that you witnessed in Chile?
Well, high density planting has been practiced for many, many years, and kind of see fluctuations about every 20 years. Somebody tries, oh, we got a new idea.
Yeah.
So in Chile, they were using Bacon variety, which is an upright columnar, which kind of lends itself to higher densities.
Okay.
Hasta is more of a umbrella shape, and so it takes a lot of pruning.
Okay.
And the thing about in Chile and in much of the rest of the world, they can use a plant growth regulator, which
Okay.
so you prune and then you spray the plant growth regulator, and that limits growth, and it
Right.
can actually increase fruit set. Well, it's a material that cannot be used in the United States.
Okay.
So you can do a high density with Hass there
Okay.
and in Australia and so on that you can't use in the United States.
Right.
So Hass, you have to prune, and it's very labor intensive, and Labor is very expensive and it's hard to get in California.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So what's happened is that people have tried high density with Hass. I've tried high density with Hass,
Yeah.
and boy, it just it doesn't it it's not economic here.
Right,
It
right,
may be economic in many other places,
right.
but there's a new variety that we've found is called GEM,
Yes,
GEM,
yes, yes, yes.
which is upright columnar the way bacon is.
Hmm.
And the thing about it is it sets a lot of fruit. It's precocious,
Yeah.
early producing, and it's incredibly productive. It's at least 25% more fruit than Hass. So the fruit
Right.
limits its growth. So it's columnar, it's high production. So we don't need to prune it as much. And
Okay.
so we have high density plantings here that are of gem that are maybe 8-10 years old, that are on spacings of 2 meters by 3 meters,
Okay, that's quite
and
close.
very close. Because
Yes.
the standard Hass planting is 6 meters by 6 meters.
Hmm.
So
Right.
you can really put a lot of trees in. It's expensive to do.
Yeah.
It's a very expensive way to get started, but you're producing a lot of fruit early on. And so that's the key. It's high density gives you a lot of fruit early,
Yeah.
but ultimately, once an orchard is canopied, it's going to be the same producing. So
Okay.
high density just means early production.
All right, all right. Because I watched a video. You probably know about Maluma.
Yeah, yeah,
So they are doing trellising in Maluma in South Africa.
yeah, yeah.
So, like, have you tried it? Is it practiced in the US? Is it worth it? Like putting all that
We
plants?
don't have Maluma.
Okay.
It's taken a while to get it introduced here and to do trials.
Hmm.
The thing about Maluma, it's got a very, very weak branching system, and it allows itself to be trellised. The
Okay.
avocado generally has a very upright growth habit, and it would be hard to trellis.
Okay.
Hass,
Yeah.
you couldn't trellis Hass.
Hmm.
You might be able to trellis gem, but because
Hmm.
it's got a kind of weak growth habit. The lamb Hass and gem
Yeah.
both will produce fruit that hangs on the interior of the canopy because it's got fairly weak branching.
Hmm.
But Maluma has even weaker branching,
All right.
so
Okay.
it's going to be interesting. The trellising that's been done in South Africa, I think, is
Hmm.
only about 3 or maybe 4 years, but 3 years.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of sunburn on the branches.
Okay.
So once you open a canopy up like that,
Yeah.
they were having to whitewash
Yeah.
the branches to avoid the
Sun.
sunburn.
Right. Okay. What else? So I read an article about Laurel wilt disease from California
Oh,
Avocado Society yearbook. It was from 2008, and you were one of the authors. So I would like to know how deadly was the problem? What are the symptoms? How can one
oh,
diagnose it? And have you
yes.
found a solution to it?
Well, it's not in California. It's in
Okay,
Florida,
right.
and it's actually in the southeast, and it's been very, very, very destructive. And uh, it's it's uh, it's a fungus that's carried by an insect,
Hmm.
and death is within a month of infection. So that's how you diagnose it. It's really rapid. So you kind of blink an eye and, oh my God, what happened? Um,
Right. And is it on all the varieties or is it just the black skin? Because from Israel, I got some people, like some people told me that it was attacking like they also have Ambrosia beetle problem in Israel, and it's attacking black skin varieties like Haas and Lambas, not the green
That
skins.
that's a different. There's 65,000 species of ambrosia beetles.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and 99% of them are decomposers. They attack dead trees,
Okay.
not live trees. So the ambrosia beetle that's in Israel is this similar one that we have here in California,
Hmm.
and it's a slow moving disease, and you can cut it out. You
Yeah.
know, it's not a it attacks weak trees that are not well taken care of. And it's a manageable disease. The one in Florida is just laurel wilt disease is devastating.
Right. And there's no solution for it so far.
So far, no, they've been working on it, spent millions and millions of dollars looking for, pesticides, things to kill the insect, as well as materials to destroy the fungus. The problem is the the ambrosia beetles are inside the tree, so there aren't really any good pesticides that are systemic that will kill the insect. And this is a decay fungus, and there aren't really any good fungicides that control decay fungi.
Okay.
So it's a it's a
Right.
very tough disease.
Now, I watched one of your videos. It was uploaded recently on YouTube. It was about managing heat in avocado orchards. So,
Yes.
can you tell me a bit more about it? Because the place where I am situated, the temperature can rise very high, like it's up to 42 degrees Celsius.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so I'm not focusing on Haas. My focus is mainly on Pinkerton
Okay.
and Ettinger. And these varieties I've seen perform well in Israel in hot climatic conditions. So that's why those are my focus.
Yeah, yeah.
So can you tell me a
So
bit? Yeah.
um, what we've looked at, well, number one is proper irrigation.
Okay.
So well irrigated trees are better
Yeah.
able to sustain um, heat. But the problem is avocados. I mean, there are a lot of differences in varieties,
Hmm.
and typically avocados in general, okay, will shut down photosynthesis at about 30 degrees centigrade,
Okay.
and then they shut down their stomata. And when they shut their stomata, that means they can't transpire, which means they can't do evaporative cooling on their leaves. Okay, so what's happened is our temperatures have gone to 45 degrees, and the heat builds up for a prolonged period of time, and it defoliates trees and it causes fruit drop. Um, so what we only recently tried to do in California is actually put out sprinklers to do overhead irrigation. Well, it's
Okay.
not irrigation actually; it's overhead cooling,
Okay.
so that we get water on the surface of the leaf, and then we get evaporation, which cools the leaf. Because the tree itself can't cool itself because the stomata are closed. So in Australia, they've done work on this now for, I don't know, about 10 years. So
Okay.
we've mimicked some of the work that they've done there.
But doesn't it hinder pruning, like mechanical pruning? Like if you have sprinklers near the tree and that goes above the tree's canopy, but if you want to prune the tree through a machine, then wouldn't that hinder the procedure?
Well, you can put these risers, the irrigation lines that go up
Yeah.
on hinges, and you can drop them
Okay.
down. And so these sprinklers, these emitters are misters, and they're only being put out at 10 per hectare. So there aren't a lot. So it wouldn't be a lot of
Oh, right. Okay.
work
Okay. I thought it
to
was.
bring them down.
I watched some of the videos and I thought it was on every tree.
That's how they first started. But
Okay.
um, we've got, so it really boils down to a site specific design. And a lot of this work has been done in Washington State on apples.
Okay.
And so they've learned to be able to put in many fewer emitters per area if you have the right design.
Right.
And sometimes it's just pulsing water.
Okay.
So it comes on for 10 minutes every hour.
Yeah.
You can rotate through the orchard. But in Australia is where they first put in one riser per tree.
Okay.
And we found now that that's overkill. It's not necessary.
Right. For varieties that you've just mentioned, like Gem, Maluma, even Carmen and Lambas, these are Haas-like varieties. But do you think these have a higher heat tolerance than Haas?
Lamb Hass does not have higher heat tolerance. I know that.
Okay, it does not.
No.
Okay.
I don't know about Maluma. We haven't really tried it here. Gem has more cold and more heat tolerance than Hass.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Carmen?
Oh, Carmen. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I know about Lamb Hass and Gem because I've seen them side by side.
Right.
In Carmen, we've seen just blocks of Carmen and blocks of Hass, and it's hard to, is it the hillside or is it the wind or something? Or
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
The Carmen was developed in Mexico, in Michoacan. Michoacan is the paradise of avocados. It's never hot, it's never cold, it rains every other day, it's pure water, it's volcanic soil, you don't have to work. And so I don't know. There's not a lot of Carmen planted in California.
Okay. It's called Mendes over there, isn't it?
Correct, same thing.
Yeah. Right. So I read a research paper from Australia. It was by Dr. Elizabeth Dan, and they did a study on clonal versus seedling rootstocks. And they found out that on Belvic, the yield from seedling was higher than clonal. What does your experience say about the rootstocks that you have used in California?
Well, the thing about I'm talking about the California experience. Mexico has the Mexican experience.
Right.
Chile has the Chilean experience. Australia might be closer to the Indian experience. I don't know.
Okay.
But I saw these trials, not that Dan did, but that were done many, many years ago by, I'm blanking right now. And it turns out there's an extreme boron deficiency in Australian soils. Australian soils are just substrate. There's no nutrients. It's a highly leached. It's some of the oldest soils in the world. They're red like your shirt. It's highly oxidized, and so you have to put in everything that you need to grow. And so the Velvic can sequester boron, whereas the clonal rootstocks they were using were from California, and we have boron toxicity.
Yeah. All right.
So they're not adapted to Australian soils. So so you got to try out. You got to experiment in every country that you go to.
Yeah. Currently, I'm trying mostly West Indian rootstocks. So the ones that are popular in Israel, those are called Degania series, Ashdod, Day, Fairchild, all those. But like we're gonna see after we have already transplanted into the field. Like the plants are in nursery right now, so we don't know.
Well, I mean, our experience with West Indian rootstocks in California are they're not cold tolerant and they die.
Okay.
And so, West Indians are adapted to those warmer climates that you find in the Mediterranean and what you'll find in India. So,
Yeah.
and some of the West Indians, they're much more tolerant of salt. They're much
Yeah.
more tolerant of phytophthora root rot.
Mm.
Um, you know, they're better adapted to a warm climate than the selections that we have in California. And
Right.
ours are based on salinity tolerance, root rot tolerance, and cold tolerance.
Right. Okay. Uh, right. So I read somewhere that recently you have been researching on how to grow avocados in coastal areas, not just avocados but also tropical fruits. Is that correct? Or
Well, all of our subtropicals, other than citrus, are
yeah,
grown in coastal areas because once you go to the interior, it's too
yeah.
cold.
Okay. So does it require much different management than like because the humidity is different, right? I suppose. So
Well, you know, humidity is a function of the distance from the ocean.
yes.
And so, where I work right now
Yeah.
in Ventura, about every 6 kilometers, humidity changes as you go to the interior.
All
And,
right.
and
Right.
temperature fluctuation is even more so. So right along the coast within the first 20 kilometers, you can grow avocados successfully, or passion fruit, or cherimoyas, atamoyas.
Yeah.
But once you get much further inland, it gets too cold and too hot,
Right.
and the humidity goes down.
So do the practices change of managing the tree and irrigating it if it's near a coastal area or if it's near inland?
It- it- you can neglect a tree or a plant or a vine along the coast, and you have to be a
Okay.
much better irrigator as you get further from the coast.
Right, right, right. Cool. So those were all the questions that I had.
That's all. I
Yeah.
can't believe that. Okay, man. I got to go back to work.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Uh,
Thank you.
if I have any more questions, if I read more papers of yours, I might hit you up with another email asking you for
Sure,
an interview again. But I
sure,
appreciate
sure.
your time.
Okay, man.
No.
Talk to you.
Yeah. See ya.